Hey friends, Carmel Holt here. As you know, times are tough for public radio and audio. And as a tiny independent feminist production company that makes SHEROES for public radio and for this podcast, we're getting hit pretty hard with financial shortfalls. Simultaneously, this is a moment where women, trans folks, non-binary, and queer folks need a safe space to be heard. And at SHEROES, we're more committed than ever before to our mission of turning up the volume of underrepresented voices in music. But to keep going, I need your help. And I have big news. SHEROES has partnered with the nonprofit AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio, and we've launched our very first fundraising campaign. You can text SHEROES to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR or visit sheroesradio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme-queer-produced audio and storytelling like the episode that you're about to enjoy. It's up to us whose voices get heard, and with your help, we'll keep turning up the volume.
At the beginning of my career, I put a lot of weight on being cute because clearly, it's attractive to people. I mean, how many artists do we like because we love their music, but the fact that they might be interesting looking or beautiful kind of draws us in. I think it's just part of who we are. But then there's also so many amazing artists that were not necessarily beautiful, but were quirky and very charismatic. And also, their art was just so good. Their songs were so good. I really wanted to lean into that. I really want to lean into being able to cultivate something that age will not be able to break. At the opposite, it might actually even get better and more interesting as I get older.
That was Raquel Berrios of Buscabulla, and this is SHEROES, a weekly podcast to amplify women, non-binary, and genderqueer voices in music across genres and generations. We believe that sharing our stories is the first step to making music better for everyone. I'm Carmel Holt. Welcome back to SHEROES and welcome in. If you're just joining us for the first time, I'm so glad that you found us. This week, if you've come looking for good trouble, you found it. We're going to get to know Puerto Rican musician, singer, and songwriter Raquel Berrios, who co-founded the band Buscabulla with her musical and romantic partner Luis Alfredo de Valle over a decade ago in New York City. Buscabulla means troublemaker in Spanish, and on their newest and most vulnerable album, the songs sort through and examine the romantic challenges, questioning, and evolution that comes with being a couple who are also in a band, as well as navigating the unpredictable ups and downs of life. Originally from Puerto Rico, Raquel and Luis decided to return in the wake of Hurricane Maria, and their full-length debut, Regresa, which documented this move, was released in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. Then in 2022, they were tapped to collaborate with Bad Bunny on a song from his album Un Verano Sin Ti, the first Spanish-language album nominated for the Grammy Award for Album of the Year, which of course brought a huge amount of attention to the band. As a roller coaster of life continued to bring some high points, a devastating loss followed in 2023 when Raquel's father passed away. 5 years of big life changes added up to the collection of songs that became Amaba Así, the way love was. Today we'll hear how Raquel came to be a risk taker and fully commit to her life as an artist, how her relationship with traditional standards of beauty has changed, and tapping into her spiritual practice opened the floodgates for her creativity as an artist and a mother, and locating her authentic self in the process. I'm so thrilled to welcome Raquel Berrios of Buscabulla as this week's SHEROE in the spotlight. Raquel Berrios, welcome to SHEROES. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm excited too. Thank you.
You're back with this amazing new album. Congratulations on, please forgive my Spanish, Se Amaba Así? Se
That was
Amaba
perfect.
Así? Okay.
Perfect.
So let's just start talking about this new album. Take us from Regresa to Se Amaba Así.
Yeah. Well, it took 5 years since we put out Regresa. Regresa came out in May of 2020, and this record came out June 13th of 2025. And 5 years is a long time, clearly. You know, our first record, Regresa, happened in a moment when we were moving from New York City to Puerto Rico after living out there for 10 years. And you have no idea, like, what a big deal it was for us. It was not an easy move. Like, Hurricane Maria had just struck the island, and we were here, like, moving 6 months after with our then 3-year-old daughter. And, you know, it took 5 years to make, and so many things happened since we put out Regresa. I mean, it was basically like 2 years in lockdown. After that, a Bad Bunny collab. And then my father passed away the year after. So you would imagine, like, they were pretty intense 5 years. You know, Puerto Rico post-pandemic is getting gentrified. We had to sort of leave the west side of the island to come to San Juan. So, like, many things have happened, and a lot of what happened actually shaped the concept of Se Amaba Así. I think it's really important to say that I very much like to write from very, very personal, profound, emotional experiences. And sometimes I feel that if I'm not having them, I don't really have any good music to write. So it took 5 years because that's how long it took for me to have that kind of emotional, I don't know, sort of like downpour. And this is a record that's basically kind of exploring me and Luis's relationship. We are partners in music, but we also have a daughter, and we've been in a relationship, and we decided to kind of take the risk of basically opening up our feelings in this record, which I felt was sort of scary and risky, but ultimately sort of very therapeutic and healing. That's what it is. That's what Samavasi is, basically, in a nutshell.
I imagine that so many of your fans and listeners have heard this album and found so much to relate to because it's so human. It's like the most basic human thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a universality, or I don't know if you say it like that. I
Yeah.
think love is universal, but I think what makes the record unique is that it's made in sort of the framing of our own culture and sort of our upbringing and how love is viewed in our culture. And we were inspired by the romantic Latin American songbook through the ages. So it's like a lot of the production and the styles of music were sort of based on romantic music that Luis and I grew up listening to. It was a scary record to make, but ultimately it's like you're not going to get anything, and that's why people relate to it. It's like, oh, you went there, like, I've gone through something like this, like, thank you for sort of being brave and sort of sharing that, you know.
Do you want to take us to a track here? You mentioned the inspiration sonically from the Latin American songbook. Do you want to take us to a track that comes to mind with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mi Marido is a wonderful song. I mean, we literally kind of sample this sort of tropical little sort of bolero like song at the beginning. And then we're mixing different eras. It has a little bit of this sort of more tropical doo-wop type of music that was really popular here in the 50s. But then we're sort of adding synths and adding additional electronic instrumentation to it, sort of bringing it to 2025. Se Amaba Así is also more of a 70s style of ballad that you would hear on the radio, like if you would have been in Puerto Rico or in Latin America. And there's a lot of salsa and tropical music that we sort of grew up in Divino Tesoro and De Lejito. So it's kind of all over the place.
Cool. Well, should we start with Mi Marido?
Yeah, let's start with that one.
That's track 8 on the new Buscabulla album, Se Amaba Así. And Mi Marido translates to my husband,
My
right?
husband, yeah. But it's
Okay.
sort of, in Spanish, people say mi esposo, but mi marido
Right.
is like way more like not slang, but more like the not as formal term. It's sort of endearing. Mi marido.
Right. But we should point out that you are not actually quote unquote married. There's no paper.
Yeah.
And you're talking about that in this
Yeah.
song.
I think that's sort of the ironic part of the song. The song is very in the style of these doo-wop tropical ballad of the 50s, which was an era that was still very conservative. And it's almost like the aspirations of the time was very much getting married and having children and being a housewife. You know what I mean? So I thought that I was actually being tongue in cheek with that. Yeah, it's kind of a personal song about Luis and I living together and raising a daughter and having a relationship, but we were never actually married. And whether or not being married qualified or took something away from the relationship, when in my mind it did feel like it was a marriage, even though technically it wasn't. So it's sort of the push and pull between the new generations and sort of the way that we choose to have relationships or think outside of the box, and how much of the old we keep and how much of the traditions we keep and how much of them we reject because we want something different. So it's a song that both worlds sort of meet and collide and maybe clash in sort of what I'm saying.
And the album does definitely not only have a foot in the past, sonically speaking, and nodding to the past and looking backwards that way, but also you look back at your own past, kind of self-therapy. It's like looking back at what was modeled for you growing up with your own parents. And I imagine also what you're speaking to, gender roles. Can you expand on that a little bit for us and tell us, like, what did you see growing up and what do you think is specific, culturally speaking, in terms of gender roles?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, my parents were baby boomers. Well, my mom's still alive. I love her. Hi, Mom. My father passed away 2 years ago. But I mean, the baby boomer generation, I mean, I still think that they were very much based in sort of gender roles that were taught by their parents. Silent generation, I think they're called. But I definitely do think that it's a generation that saw the 60s and the sexual revolution. And, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s where my mom worked all the time. She wasn't a housewife. I think by that point, like all of our parents probably worked. And it was there was a lot of tension between the women of the moment still trying to be these housewives, yet maybe in this sort of weird moment where they didn't know whether to go for their dreams and how much they had to be there for their families. And also my father feeling very much that he had to be this provider. And like in every family, like we went through ups and downs, and I could see like how heartbreaking it was. There was a moment where my dad had lost his airline job, and I remember that was just it was so intense for him as a man, as like that point in our lives really marked something. Like it's something that I go to a lot in therapy because it was so traumatic for him to lose his job, and like everything that happened after that, it's just something that really took a big chunk of him because a lot of it was sort of based on what he knew about what men should be and like how they should provide. But I wondered if he would have had a different perspective on it. Like maybe things would have been different, or maybe he would have sort of viewed his relationship or sort of the power dynamic between what my mother could bring to the table, what he could bring to the table in different ways. And it's funny because like I remember my dad always told me, don't ever depend on a man for anything. Like you should make your own money because the minute you have problems, if you want to leave,
Right.
And me and my sister like grew up to be like pretty big hustlers, and we've never really had to, we haven't fallen into those roles. So I think that in a way, like growing up around what we saw in our parents made us be like, wait a minute, we're going to be very independent. We really want to realize our dreams. We can still have families and have babies, but that doesn't mean that we have to sort of play these like antiquated roles. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. But it's not an easy process to shed it.
No.
We're always in this like, and I still think that, I mean, men and women we're just still in a time where, think about the history of humankind, and let's like, this is a really crazy moment for gender roles, and like people don't even know like how to sort of exist in these roles, or like I think that the problem is attraction, and sometimes you want to be attracted to a provider, but that's antiquated and that's not the world we live in. And it's like, I think that we need a lot of like therapy, we need a lot of talking, we need a lot of like reprogramming. Like we have to be really deep in it so that it's not a big chaos and everybody ends up hating each other and everybody just wants to be alone and not be with anybody ever.
Yeah. Well, can we talk a little bit, Raquel, about how that upbringing and how you and your sister were infused with this spirit of hustling and being independent? For you, how did that translate as far as your musical path?
Yeah. Um, I think that many times I felt that my parents, in some point, sort of gave in to this idea that they had to kind of sacrifice their own crazy dreams for the sake of bringing up a family or for a sake of sort of normalcy that maybe society needed. And I think because I was the younger child, I always grew up saying, like, man, like, I really want to go for my dreams. My dad was a musician, a frustrated musician. And I think that
Mm.
there's something about you seeing your parents wanting to do something and you're feeling like, I'm going to do things differently. My mother was always into design but also never pursued it. So I studied textile design. So, it's like I feel that a lot of these interests that they had that they never pursued, like I felt like I'm going to break that cycle and I'm going to really go for what I want. And I remember at the beginning it was hard because I don't really think that my dad wanted me to be ever an artist or a musician as sort of a traditional dad. And I remember that I had to do a lot of inner work, a lot of meditation to be brave enough to say, wait a minute, this is where I'm different from who you are. You know what I mean? And I think that my sister has done the same. We've
Mm.
had to really do a lot of soul searching and a lot of therapy to break away from what maybe that expectation. And we've had to really sort of create who we are and just be, just really be self actualizing and just do what we've wanted to always do.
That makes so much sense. So when did you yourself start to, I don't know, I mean, what would you point to as the start for you? I think you had an all-girl band, if I'm
Yeah.
getting that right, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like the way that the universe took me was that I studied architecture because I felt that it was creative enough, but yet still respectable so that my father wouldn't complain that I was just straight up going to art school or to
Right.
like music school.
Yeah.
And that took me to be a textile designer. And I worked in New York. That's what my day job was in New York. But while I was doing that, I had a great group of Puerto Rican girlfriends that were basically my extended family in New York City because I was
Mm.
away from my actual family. And yeah, we made this group called Enteta, which basically means like topless in Spanish. And it was just this like fun thing that we did for fun. And at the moment, we were all single, like we were kind of in our late 20s in New York. And it was just sort of these silly songs about the life that we had in New York. And a lot of it was sort of around boys and relationship dynamics. And I don't know if it was full on feminist, but we were definitely having a lot of fun and kind of making fun of the ridiculousness of, dynamics and relationships and girls just having fun and being young in New York. So that's sort of where the music thing started. But as you see, like it started as a joke. It's like at the moment, I really didn't take it seriously. But once I turned 30, I fell into this sort of like mild depression where like the textile design job wasn't filling me. Like it felt like
Mm.
it was a point in my life where I felt that I had a bigger purpose, but I wasn't sure what it was. And then Luis, with whom I had just started my relationship, he introduced me to this wonderful woman called Nora, who was a Buddhist. And she basically said, yeah, that's basically who I was 20 years ago. I was like living in the East Village. I was an artist. I was depressed. And then I started meditating and incorporating a spiritual practice, and my life changed. And I remember that I started chanting with her, and I actually met a lot of amazing women through the SGI sort of Buddhist chapter. But it wasn't until I got really heavy into meditating. This one time, she said, I want you to really chant for your wildest dreams. And nobody had ever challenged me to think about what my wildest dream, like how many
Hmm.
times are you asked, what's your wildest dream? I think many times we take our wildest dreams and we just basically like put it in a drawer, like in an attic, because there's life, there's survival, there's like reality. And I actually started meditating and it came out. It's like, Raquel, you need to be an artist. You need to be a musician. You've shown that you've always had this around and you're doing it for fun with your friends, but like maybe you should actually pursue this. And that's how it all started, basically. Like I permitted myself to sort of dream and go for it.
Wow. Yes. I mean, yes to all of that. And you're right. I mean, when does anyone ask you that question? What is your wildest dream? Thanks, Nora. We all need a Nora,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, man. I love Nora. I love her. She's such a, talking about women and sheroes, she's my shero for sure. I love her.
Is there a song on this album that you connect to in terms of the feminine?
I think Miraverahí. I love Miraverahí. I love this song because, this record is about relationships and it's very, the beginning of the record is sort of a he said, she said. It's almost like his perspective on the relationship. And this is my perspective. And Miraverahí is basically like a conjoint, I don't know if you say that, conjoint word, that it's look and see what happens if I leave or if I do this, So it's Miraverahí. And the song is all about perception and sort of being sensitive to things that sometimes men can't see. And it's sort of my way, my perspective, my feminine perspective in the relationship and the way that I'm seeing the relationship. There's a part where I'm sort of talking about us being mirrors. The whole song, the lyrics play with perception, but I feel that the way that I am sort of trying to convince Luis to look at the relationship comes from a very intuitive feminine angle about seeing relationships, where it's like, try and go deeper than what you're seeing at surface level. Like, let's really, I invite you to go way deeper into these feelings and into a much vulnerable space for you to really see the reality of our situation. So I think I would say that's the most feminine.
Miraverahí. Am I saying that right? Miraverahí?
Yeah, perfect.
Raquel Berrios of Buscabulla here with us on Sheroes. I'm Carmel Holt. It's interesting to think about you leaving Puerto Rico, going to New York City, and then going back. And at that point in your career, too, you released a full-length debut album, I guess, right when you moved back. Is that right in the timeline? In 2020? You'd already moved back around like 2018 or something? Okay,
yeah.
Right. So I thought about this when you were talking about how you connected with that group of Puerto Rican women in New York City and having the all-girl group. Like, when you came back to Puerto Rico, like, did you feel like your time in New York City had shifted your relationship to yourself as a woman and as a woman that has been pursuing her wildest dreams? Like, do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah.
Like, how did that feel to kind of like reintegrate, even though it was the pandemic, which probably slowed things down a little?
Yeah. I mean, my wildest dreams was to always come back. I mean, it felt that, I had lived out for 12 years. And I think something that really changed was that I had a baby and she was speaking English. My father and Luis's family, they were all here in Puerto Rico. And after a while, like having a kid in New York City and having a band was just wild because we had to keep our day jobs. So I put a lot of things in perspective and it just felt that all that we were doing was working and our daughter was growing up and I'm like, I want her to be close to family. So I definitely have to say that I think that my life has been interesting because I actually started making music. And when I started actually pursuing it for real, I was pregnant. So like everything happened at the same time.
Wow.
It wasn't like I discovered that I wanted to really pursue music like for real. And then after making it and having my experiences, I decided to have a kid. No, everything came at the same time. It's almost as if I had all these things like on sort of like backlog or something. And then it's when I started chanting, like all of a sudden, like all of these things like happened at the same time. Like,
wow.
But I feel that they were all like gifts from the universe where it's like maybe there was a relationship between myself actualization, to be a musician, to be an artist, and to also become a mother. Like it's like almost like I was like fertile for like all of these wonderful things. And I think that part of making the decision to come back to Puerto Rico was like sort of providing maybe that dream of like being able to be in a space where we could be, where we were home, where we were back
Yeah.
home, where we were near family, where she was going to speak her language, and where maybe I was going to be able to draw from more directly from my cultural heritage in a way that I couldn't have done in New York, because I feel that many times I romanticized Puerto Rico, or I looked at it from this very far away lens that wasn't really the reality. So once I moved, my complete perspective changed on how I wanted to write and how I wanted to exist as an artist.
Ooh, can you say more about that?
Yeah,
How
I mean,
so?
I feel sometimes that when you're from a place and you're far away, I think Puerto Rico is a really particular place. It's a small island in the Caribbean, and so many people have to leave. But clearly, like, this is paradise. I mean, we still, like, we grew up in a more communal sense. Our culture is very warm, we're very social. You know, we go to the beach a lot, like we exist in nature. Like I grew up in on a mountain. And I think that once you leave for big cities where you're just trying to get money because you're trying to get good jobs, like there's literally a part of your soul that is just like not there. And I think that while I was young, it was wonderful because I believe that I was made Buscabulla was made in New York, and a lot of like the way that I understood how to be an artist came from being in New York and from seeing all of this wonderful art and being around all these wonderful musicians and artists. But something about coming back home was about coming back to the most authentic, essential thing. There was like no guide. Like I felt sort of when I was in New York, I was drawing a lot from what was going on artistically and musically in the moment. And I felt that once I came to Puerto Rico, it was just going to be me, my bare bones, my heritage, and that maybe I could really draw to make work that was a bit more authentic, scarier. Yeah, I would definitely describe it. It was my way of making work that was going to be way more authentic to myself.
Oof. I mean, like, that gets me, like, right here. That's beautiful. And so I'm curious to know how all of this intersects with how you have dealt with being perceived, like,
Mm,
visually. Because
mm.
I know that there's a lot of pressures, right? I mean, there's a lot of pressures just existing in a female form, beauty culture, the male gaze. Do you know Lido Pimienta by any
Yeah,
chance?
I love her. I know her. I love
Okay.
everything that she
Love,
does. She's great.
love, love,
Mhm.
love. In fact, we just had a little reunion here on the podcast, and it just reminded me how much more I love her even than ever before. So
I
we
love her.
talk about that a lot, and
Mhm.
she's very outspoken about those pressures. And also, told me a lot about as far as Colombia, that album Miss
Mhm.
Colombia. It was like all
Yeah.
about that.
Mhm.
And not only the pressures that she feels or felt, but also externally perceptions of Latin women. So, can you talk to us a little bit about that as you're sketching out this journey that you've been on of returning home and reconnecting and really digging into your authentic self? What has that journey been like?
I am deep
Progressed.
in it.
Yes.
I am deep in it, and it's been very much a recurring theme. I feel that ever since Regresa, there's one song on Regresa called Nydia. Nydia is a song about being in a really dark place and having to kind of dig yourself out of it. And in that song, I sample this woman called Nydia Caro, who was a very well known sort of Puerto Rican singer, TV actress. She's sort of iconic, gorgeous woman. And I remember that she was just the classiest, witchiest person. And even as she got old, I mean, she took very good care of herself. She was very healthy. But what was cool is that she never stopped to be cool to me. Even like now she's in her 70s. Like she never stopped being powerful, because what I realized that even though when she was way younger, she was beautiful, as she got older, I realized that it wasn't really about her face or whether or not she was getting older. It was really about her energy and sort of her way of seeing the world. And she was very mystical. And it's
Mm.
almost like the older that she got, she became like almost like, I don't want to say like godlike, but she became like wise, almost like she had this sort of other dimension that it felt to me. Like, I mean, I call her like a white witch, you know what I mean? and
Yes.
and I remember at the moment telling her, Nydia, I'm getting older and I just feel like at the beginning of my career, like I put a lot of weight on being cute because that clearly like it's attractive to people. I mean, how many artists do we like because maybe, I mean, we love their music, but the fact that they might be interesting looking or beautiful kind of draws us in. I think it's just part of who we are. But then there's also so many amazing artists that were not necessarily beautiful, but were quirky and very charismatic. And also, like, their art was just so good. Their songs were so good. And I really felt that it was a moment where I really wanted to lean into that. Like, I was like, I really want to lean into really being able to cultivate something that age will not be able to break. At the opposite, it might actually even get better and more interesting as I get older. And right now, I'm going to be 44. And clearly, like, I think it gets trickier, when you're doing photo shoots and videos and you start looking at yourself and you clearly start seeing that you're not this young person anymore. And sometimes my dad would tell me, you're getting older to be doing this music thing. And then it was like his voice was very like,
Mm-hmm.
I had to really fight against this thing that, like, it's crazy that you would think that a person that needs to be a musician needs to be young and beautiful and like, and I think that's just the current state of music now. It's like before people couldn't even look at people because they just heard the music and it was gorgeous. But we're so obsessed with imagery and looking at it. And I'm still trying to find ways to unattach myself to thinking that my beauty or even my career is a measure of my self-worth. Even just beyond that, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm an artist, I make music. That's just like one small dimension of who I am as a person. I'm a good person, I'm a good mother, I'm a good friend, I'm a good daughter. I've always made work from a very honest place. Like I feel like I have a good heart. Like I really want my country to be better. Like I feel like I have good intentions. And I feel like that's what I should really be putting my self-worth on, not whether or not my career is super successful or if I make a lot of money or if I look beautiful and I look hot. And I think it's a journey. I'm also in my 40s. So it's like, it's a moment where women have to really say goodbye to this ideal thing. And I'm that type of person where I really want to surrender to that. Like, I don't want to start stretching my face and looking because I feel like that's not honest. I feel like now the focus is like, I want to get really strong. Like, I want to go to the gym and I want to be strong, but I want to be strong because I want to feel strong and healthy and powerful for myself because I want to look like I can still take on life, not because somebody's going to be looking at my body. And you know what I mean?
100%. That all sounds so true, so real, so familiar,
I know.
I'm 52. So wait, am I
Wow.
52 or am I 53?
You don't look
Yeah.
52 at all, by the way, but
Well, you're seeing me through a screen.
yeah.
Probably if you saw me, you'd be like, oh, yeah, she's got a little
Yeah.
like this, and I got a little this, and I got a little that.
But I remember when somebody told me that if you were doing something that you loved, it's almost like it's not a struggle. And I feel that if you're living within the truth and you're doing something that really fills you with life, it's almost like my friend Nora, who's probably about your age, like all that I could see in her was her smile and how bright she shined because of her energy.
Right.
And that's probably your case too.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. That's very sweet. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as in Puerto Rico, I want to say, not Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. So ugly the way that we
I
say
say it both ways. Sometimes I say Puerto Rico, and sometimes I'm like Puerto Rico. So it's fine.
But anyway, so what is it like? What's your experience of it? How can you enlighten us about
Yeah.
on top of all just the normal stuff that we go through as we age, is there anything that's specific to living in Latin America culture that
Mhm.
amplifies that or makes it easier?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, clearly we have a stereotype. Latina women need to be hot. I think it stems from that our cultures are a little bit late in the game in the sort of the equality of the sexes in the war of the equality of the sexes, and clearly like our cultures tend to be still a lingering machismo around it, where women need to be very hot for the men. You know what I mean? I think that that's just the cliche. We're also beauty pageants have been a big thing, and Miss Universe,
Right.
we've had a couple of Miss Puerto Ricos. And so when you think about like if right now you would think about who the ideal Puerto Rican woman is, well, you got J-Lo, who's literally I can't believe that she even looks the way that she looks. And I would say that it's like all power to her, because I'm sure she works her ass off to look that good. But at the
Definitely.
same time, yeah, it is sort of weird that she has to have that pressure because she's a Latina Puerto Rican woman that has to constantly be super sexy. And JLo's already like deep in her 50s. And at the same time, it's like, man, it's just kind of crazy that she just can't be like a regular 50-year-old. It's like, this is like the idealized way that like, and I worry a little bit about her, because as she gets older, like her body's just not gonna be able to keep looking like that. And I wonder how she's gonna deal with that at the moment where
Right.
it comes. I believe that even though that is sort of the thing, I think in Puerto Rico, it's not as bad, I would say, than in other countries. I think that there's a movement here where there's a lot of women that are embracing more a natural way of growing older. And I think that there's a big wave of women that are also being healthy and, creating a lot of communities around support. It's not big, but I kind of see it, you know what I mean? And I'm feeling excited about it, because I kind of feel like I'm part of that wave where I'm like, I
Yes.
still want to look good and I want to look cute, but I'm not obsessed with sort of having this super like I've never done any work on myself, and I've think it's kind of weird also. I don't know if it's because I'm an independent artist, just as Lido is, but there is something about being an independent artist where I want to be independent from whatever is the social standard of beauty. And I think that there's something that goes with that. But it does exist. We exist within that sort of like weird cliche that like Puerto Rican women have to be hot and have a big butt and like, be sort of sexy Latina. But I'm like, I feel like that's like, I'm just kind of over that, by this point. It's like people, we're in 2025.
Exactly, exactly. Have you found some ways to cope with that or to navigate that on this new record, like as you're doing press publicity, videos, photo shoots, going out on tour, Instagram, all of the things, like anything that you can share with us that's
Yeah.
kind of worked for you?
So this woman, Nydia, who I really admired, she said, Raquel, like, you must never forget to have fun. Don't look at like you dressing up or somebody taking a picture of you like it's going to be like this camera that's only going to be sort of highlighting your flaws. She's like, you should use the opportunity to have fun. Like, you get to dress up, you get to sort of play around with colors and textures and like with the way that the camera's capturing you. You know what I mean? And I feel that if the approach and the energy is there, you're gonna emanate an
Yeah.
energy and a beauty. And I
Yeah.
figured out that that's basically what it is. If I go in the room feeling like, oh my God, I could have lost like 5 more pounds, or I'm gonna come into the room kind of feeling just like it's the camera's gonna capture that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like it's all about security, clearly, but also like, let me just have fun. I get to be an artist. I get to have my picture taken. Like, let me really be able to give off an energy where I'm enjoying myself. You know what I mean? And like, it's
Yes.
funny how much of that can really change the way that you're perceived. You know what I mean? Like when you stop taking it so seriously, you know? And I think, for example, I see somebody like Lido and she has a lot of fun. I love her outfits and she's always experimenting with things. And when I look at her, it's like, I'm like, it's amazing. You know what I mean? And
Amazing.
like, and whether or not like if her beauty or her body, like it's not important at all. It's more about her expression and her energy. And I think that women we just have to focus more on that. It's like, just focus on your damn energy and like, and enjoying the process, you know? And that will basically emanate confidence and it'll radiate through anybody.
Absolutely. And not only that, it will also model that for younger people
Yes,
too, which is
exactly.
like so important. And we forget about that, like sometimes I hear myself and like I really try. I mean, I've considered myself a feminist my whole adult life, and I still find myself sometimes like, talking shit about
Yeah.
myself. And I'm like,
Yep.
what am I doing? Like, this is not who I want to be, not only for myself, but more importantly, for everybody else.
I mean, I think it's like what we were talking about earlier. It's really a deprogramming. It's
Yeah.
about thinking that once you start seeing an image where your skin doesn't look so tight, or you start seeing that your face is aging, does that really take something away from the music that you're making at the moment, from whatever you're talking about, from the energy that you're bringing into a room when you're performing? And I have to say, like, I think a lot of women that I looked up to, like Juana Molina, I don't know if you know who she is. She's an
Oh my
Argentinian.
God.
Yeah.
Love,
Juana
love.
Molina, like, I remember seeing her, and she was probably, when I started seeing her, she was already in her 50s. And I just looked at her and I was just such in awe of her and her talent. And women like Patti Smith or even Bjork, and just women that have just sort of transcended Yoko Ono, just women that are just freaking cool and badasses, and like they're still gorgeous in their own way, you know what I mean? But I'm very excited by women like that. And I hope that maybe I can turn into something like that where it's like more, I don't know, it's less about, oh, she's so beautiful, and it's more about, yeah, she's a badass, you know?
And also, by the way, I think the next level above that is like we redefine beauty
Exactly.
so that it's not like the
Exactly.
only thing that is beautiful in terms of our physical appearance
Mhm.
is youth, but that like we can look at somebody that has apparent aging, whether and
Yeah.
or is not like a perfectly toned fit body that has like given
Right.
birth and
Mhm.
has, like a little bit of extra
Mhm.
love handles or maybe a lot, and still see their beauty as who they are, which is like an incredible human.
And I think that's what the role of artists is. Or like, for example, like how different would a photographer, depending on what their approach could be, photographing like an older woman, like could be, it just depends on how. And it's usually through the eye of the artist where it can become really beautiful depending on how they frame it, or the way that a film is
Correct.
made, or and I think that that's what's so beautiful, that maybe we also, as women artists, maybe we also have to kind of help. Now I'm sort of thinking about it, maybe we also have to help other women be perceived and sort of been shown in a light where they're like mysterious and intricate and beautiful in their own way. I kind of like this idea. It seems like it needs to be a
Yes.
communal approach to really like start changing this perception.
Let's do it. I'm
I
in.
love it. It's
Count me
fun.
in. Raquel, it's been so awesome to hang out with you.
Mm.
This hour is flying by. I have one last question for you, which is a tradition. I give my guests a Sheroes magic wand. And one of these days I'm going to actually have to have like a real wand in here. But I give you a Sheroes magic wand, and this is actually great timing for this. I ask my guests to imagine that they hold the power to change anything in the music industry for women, for non-binary folks, for queer folks, for BIPOC folks, for anybody that doesn't have an equal say, an equal platform. If you held this wand in your hand and you just gave it one wave, like the first wave of the wand, what would you change?
Oh, man. I think it has to do mostly with our capitalist system, but I feel like I wish that I could just change the way that artists exist in the world, especially like women artists that are mothers. And I wish that there could be some sort of support. Like, I remember Chapel Rome talking about like healthcare. Like, I wish that music would be seen more as any other job and not superficial, so that we could actually get real world support, because still entertainers are so necessary in the world. And like, why are we not creating that? Not like a union, but like maybe like more resources and things so that women and especially mothers could sort of keep doing what they do. You know what I mean? That's definitely something that I would do, because something I've clearly struggled with my own career and balancing motherhood and being an artist. So that's what I would use my wand for.
It's a great wish. May it be so. Raquel, thank you for being with us on Sheroes. What song should we go out with off of the new album?
Oh, I think that we should finish with Se Amaba Así. I love that song. It's a very deep song. My daughter sings at the end. It's a very gorgeous song. So let's do it.
With thanks once again to Raquel Berrios. Thank you for being with us on Sheroes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Massive thanks once again to Raquel Berrios of Buscabulla for being with us. The new album is called Se Amaba Así, available now on Domino Records. Sheroes is produced by me, is mixed and mastered by Kelly Drake. Our original theme music is by Lucius. Our podcast is distributed by Talkhouse. Sheroes is also a nationally syndicated radio show. Please visit SheroesRadio.com to find out more. Keep in touch on Instagram at Sheroes Radio, and please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Sheroes Productions. Sheroes is 100% independent and is made possible through the support of our public radio affiliates and now listeners like you. We've launched our very first fundraising campaign. Text Sheroes to 53555. That's Sheroes to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR, which is our nonprofit partner, or visit SheroesRadio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme, and queer-produced audio and storytelling. And until next time, remember, music is our superpower. I'm Carmel Holt. Thanks for listening. Also from Sheroes Productions, take a journey on the road to Joni, an Ambie Award-nominated 10-episode series celebrating the legacy and impact of Joni Mitchell. Distributed by Talkhouse. Subscribe now to The Road to Joni wherever you get your podcasts.